Hey, this is Dre with Yourself.Podcast. And I know we've been on a long hiatus, and I have a video separate posted up that will explain the whole MIA situation. But we're glad to have you back, listening in, joining us, and speaking all things mental health, life challenges, and everything that comes with it. Today we have Keith on our panel, and we're going to be discussing kind of what a narcissist is, the characteristics of narcissism, and also being in a relationship with someone who was a strong narcissist, and how to kind of work your way through that relationship, work your way out of it, maybe what possible groups on social media that you can join that may be helpful for you. And so I'd just like to welcome Keith. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Dre. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. Um, I understand that your message today is about being involved in a long-term relationship. Was it a marriage that you were involved with, or just was it like a living together situation?
Yeah, it was a married 23 years. It's coming up on 24, but yes.
Okay. Okay, so when you first got married, um, what did you believe that love and partnership would look like?
Well, at that point in my life, I was still searching to complete myself in a relationship, and I think this goes way back to childhood. But at that point, I had just got out of another relationship that wasn't healthy, and I believe that, to fulfill myself, I always looked for companionship to complete myself. So
Mm.
that left me very vulnerable to this marriage.
Yeah, yeah, and I think a lot of us, I think a lot of us do that when we're a lot younger, especially if you're saying this was 20 some years ago.
Hmm.
Um, we don't know exactly what love is, either because we weren't taught it by our parents, or our parents' relationship might have not been the best example of what love should have been, or what a partnership should be. And
Yes.
so we always seem to tend to, what I've seen anyway, and in my experience, we tend to kind of marry or get into relationships that kind of echo what we grew up with.
Yeah.
Do you think that that's the
So
case?
yeah, I've in my own healing journey, I've figured out, and this was took me 2 years after I left the marriage to figure out that this stemmed from my childhood. My I had a great family until I was 11 years old. My father had a aneurysm right in front of me and passed away.
Oh,
So
my goodness. I am
yeah,
so sorry about that. How old were you?
I was 11.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, that was rough. So mom had to work full time. My sister and I were on our own. Um, she had a couple of other marriages, and they weren't healthy. And the other thing is, I have, so my father died of aortic aneurysm, which is a, I got the same, what do you call, it's a connective tissue disorder. It's called Loeys-Dietz syndrome.
Okay.
Um, it's a connective tissue, so the his heart vessel, all your blood vessels in your body are affected. So it also affects your skeletal. So I have a chest deformity. My ribs are cave in from that. I was very, very skinny at a young age growing up. And so a lot of this stems all the way back to bullying for my looks. So it gave me a very low, you know, vision of myself, a low self esteem.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what carried me, what I carried through the rest of my life, and trying to fill that void. Um,
Yeah.
so I was looking to do that through a partner to make myself feel whole. And in my healing journey, I figured out that I was a good man, that I was okay to be on my own, that I didn't need anybody else to be happy.
Hmm.
That was the key.
That's really difficult to grow up. I was a subject of bullying myself growing up, and I know how it can definitely affect your self worth or your self esteem.
Yeah.
Um, and it's not until you realize that you can stand up for yourself that really the bully isn't as big as you thought they were, and
Yes.
they stood down as soon as you stood up. You know,
Yes.
that was my experience. And
Yes.
but what do you think, looking back now that you were in that kind of like vulnerable state? What were some of the early signs that you think you might have overlooked, or even
I,
like you recognize, sometimes you do recognize the red flags, but you kind of ignore them?
mhm. I don't know. And the word narcissism is thrown around so much. So I think this is very important for people to understand. So, in the beginning, when she was actively pursuing me, there were so many red flags, and I didn't even realize what they were until 21 years later. Really?
It happens.
The
There's been worse things that
the rednecks are loose. Okay.
there's been so many things that have happened on my podcast. You did. So yes, so we were talking about narcissism. So you said it gets the word gets thrown around a lot.
Yeah. So it was, so the first one I would like to talk about is covert narcissism.
Hmm.
So a lot of people will maybe recognize in when you hear about a man that has two total separate families for years and nobody knows.
Hmm.
That's covert narcissism. So this is what my ex was in the beginning. And she was so good at, I didn't know. I don't know if it was naivety or just the red flags in the beginning. They didn't register with me at all. And I figured them out after I got out and did all the studying, because knowledge is power. So that's why I studied all of this. And the she groomed me. She put me in situations early on in the relationship. Like, she took me to another man that she had a relationship with house to hang out, and she let me know that she used to be with this man. And because I said no, that's not appropriate, she just kept putting me into situations like that, and I went along with it, and I thought, no big deal. Well, that's not really that big of a deal if you think about it. But over time, there was about 5 or 6 situations, and I responded the way that she knew that she could manipulate me. I will put it that way.
Yeah. So I was reading that seems very bizarre to me. First of all, that she would put you in those situations. I think she wanted
Mhm.
to test your maybe jealousy level, or if
Exactly.
you would stand up for her, defend her, or
Yes.
defend her honor in some sort of distorted way. Um,
Yes.
but I was reading that grandiosity and superior sup- I can't say the word superiority, believing that they're superior, special, unique, exaggerating talents, stuff like that. Need for admiration, lack of
O-
empathy. Those were
Okay.
some of the things that and there's others too. But um, did she, did she kind of expose any of those type of characteristics?
So, with covert narcissism, she had the hugest complex of how superior she was. but she masked. So narcissists wear their, if you think about it, like two personalities with a covert narcissist. So she'd had that, but for 21 years, I did not know that. The first sign I ever saw of that was when I was getting close, when I was starting to see the red flags 21 years later. She actually wrote on the calendar on her birthday, national holiday. And that really puzzled me because I had never, ever in 21 years seen that side of her. So that was one of her masks starting to slip towards the end.
I see. Okay. I always thought my birthday was a national holiday too, but um,
Well,
so
that's the thing with narcissism, and that's a good point because every single person on this planet has some level of narcissism in them. It's just we're humans. So the way, so even my ex, I can't claim that she has an NPD disorder outright because she hasn't been clinically diagnosed.
mhm,
So they use a scale. There's a big, the psychiatric community has it's a level of a bunch of questions, and the person is supposed to answer all of those questions to determine how much narcissism is. There's not a good way to put it, but how high they rank on the narcissistic scale.
mm,
So,
okay, that's interesting. I did see a chart that you sent me, or not a chart actually. It was more like an image where you showed a brain that was developed normally,
hmm
and then a brain that had been wired to think as a narcissist. And it was fascinating to me to learn that the brain actually shifts and kind of like anxiety, because I deal with anxiety a lot. And
hmm
I know that my brain was wired that way at a very young age, and it takes years and years and years and years of therapy
yes,
to undo that, and then to rewire it back and say, you okay,
yes,
you know, to forget the memories, or not to forget them, but to at least be able to work through them, and then rewire your brain again to where you had a
yes.
good development.
So, yeah, so narcissism, I've done a lot of research, and narcissists develop the way they are usually almost 100% of the time from their childhood.
Mm-hmm.
So the I know my ex had she never disclosed all of it, but she had some pretty big traumas through her childhood. So it's a defense mechanism they develop because they don't understand what love is, and they develop this mechanism. They call it supply. So a lot of them are highly sexually active because they get their supply, or their, it's like their fuel. They have to be fed, or they feed their need through interactions with other people and manipulating other people. So they have to make themselves believe, they know they're a bad person. So in order to make themselves believe they're good, they do all these different things. It's pretty complex, but they feed the need, the hole that they have inside themselves, and they fill it through other people.
Yeah, and I think the old term that I think that may, or that a lot of people may be more familiar with, is somebody that uses someone for their benefit. I think
Yes.
that's something that I certainly learned after um, knowing the actual meaning of a narcissist. I thought to myself, oh, that sounds really familiar. And then
Mhm.
you think back and you think, how many times have I been in a relationship, whether it was a friendship or a romantic relationship, where that
Yep.
person just took and took until there was nothing to take anymore, and then you were dropped. And then that was it.
Yes.
And then they would move on. So
Yes.
when she took and took and took and took, did you ever feel like you were losing your own sense of who you were?
The the most disheartening thing about it is I didn't realize it because they are such good manipulators in the way that they do it slowly over time with mine. I was, she pretty much ruled where we went and what we did through manipulation, and I let it happen because her mask was always that she was the perfect Christian wife. And I learned a lot about, the Bible and God and everything through her, but that was her mask. That's not who she truly was. They're so good at manipulation that I did not see the how much she belittled me, didn't let me be who I was. I was a very outgoing person and I had a lot of friends, but at home it was a different story, but I just didn't see it.
So did at some point did it feel like you were getting isolated more and more from your friends or your family?
It definitely, in 21 years, I saw my mother and my sister three times
In how many years?
in 21 years.
Wow. Yeah,
So
that's
we moved a lot. We lived in five different states. There was always an excuse as to why we couldn't go see my family, or I went once by myself and my daughter went with me. There was always, and the crazy thing is, and I had a lot of guilt and shame over this, was I made excuses for her.
mm,
That's how good their manipulation is. And one of my biggest struggles was I just hated confrontation. I cannot stand to argue and fight. So for the sake of keeping the peace, I would let her get her way. I would let her manipulate. And they are very good at it.
yeah, that's what I understand too. Um, it's interesting to have you on the panel because it's it's kind of, I don't know what the percentage is, but it seems like the percentage is uneven when it comes to um, woman being involved with a narcissist man as opposed the other way around, um, or even in the LGBTQ community. But
Mhm.
when you were involved with her, um, what fears kept you from leaving?
So for 21 years, I wouldn't have left. Wild horses couldn't have drugged me away from it because I was so trauma bonded. That's another term that people should look up and learn. Your 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 brain gets so used to the mental abuse and the control that you have a very hard time of seeing any red flags. You sweep them under the rug. So towards the end, when I started, so I retired from work because of my spine. I have bad scoliosis. So we had a farm, and I worked more at home and on the farm. And that's when I very first started noticing some of the red flags.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still, and it's hard for people to understand the state of mind that you're in. You just don't see it. And I guarantee if somebody would have told me some of the things before, I wouldn't have believed them. I would have said, nah, she's a good Christian woman. That's how good they are at portraying that persona.
And what were the red flags that you saw that you were realizing?
So some of the ones I started realizing were, and oddly enough, I started getting the inkling that she might be cheating on me. So I looked that up, and a lot of the signs that they were talking about were like being very protective of your phone,
Mm-hmm.
of her phone, not always having a lock on the screen or always putting it face down if they left the room. And that's when I started thinking, oh, that's so I thought it was just, at first, was just cheating. And then I started noticing other red flags. So right here behind me is, and this part is,
Take your time. That's okay.
they isolate you. So
Hmm.
I had one friend that I texted every day. I had my dog behind me was my best friend. And he paid with his life because he was protective of me, and she was bringing men into the house and couldn't have him there. So I believe in my heart that she overdosed him on anti-diarrheal medicine because he started having seizures. And
So he was having seizures just because he might have had a disorder of some sort, and then she was.
he did, but towards the end, a lot of the stuff and research that I did, I'm pretty sure that, yeah, he was taken out of the way for other reasons. So
So he was like given more of the medication that he needed, but to an excess that.
he didn't even need he wasn't throwing up or having diarrhea, but it was given to him because I was going through the prescriptions, and half a bottle of anti-diarrheal medicine on a dog that doesn't have anything like that. Um,
Oh, it can be fatal. Okay,
yes.
I see. My goodness, that is horrible for someone to go through, and I'm sorry
But
you had
yeah.
to go through
So
that.
the reaction, that's what was the biggest red flag. That's when I realized that she didn't give two craps about me, was her reaction to the death of my best friend.
Hmm. I'm really sorry that.
And yeah, and then even ridiculing me for having emotions about the death of that dog. It, the mental torture is,
I am so sorry. That is incredible to even think that someone would stoop to that level. You know, I always say to myself, there's got to be a special spot somewhere
right.
in this universe for people who hurt animals. I mean, it's bad enough to hurt kids, to hurt, anyone, to hurt anyone,
Yeah.
to be unkind, to be selfish, to only think of yourself and your feelings, but to go as far as, going something through what you went through, and then also committing harm to a defenseless
Yeah.
animal
Like
is.
I can, even though she almost ended my life, that's the hardest part of my story.
How did that come about?
So there was a lot of other stuff going on at the time. So a covert narcissist with their mask, when you start noticing the red flags and their mask is slipping, that's when she turned into what they call as a malignant narcissist. So she turned into, from protecting her image at all costs to trying to destroy me with everything that was in her. Mentally, I'm over 6 foot tall and 200 and some pounds. So, and she's a small. So none of it was physical, but the mental was. Um, there was a time when I was coughing up blood, like 3 tablespoons, 4 tablespoons of blood when we were out somewhere, and I drove us to the hospital, and I went into the emergency room alone. Um, After 21 years of marriage, I think I would have been had more concern and went inside the hospital with my partner.
Mm-hmm.
She basically kissed me on the cheek and said, "Good luck." Um, just and it'd probably take me 2 hours to remember and mention everything that happened, but I'm trying to give some of the examples.
Mm-hmm.
So then uh, they do a thing that's called reactive abuse, where they will argue with you and cause a fight, but then what they're trying to do is get you to react.
Mm-hmm.
So I know she had these recorded. She would goad me into reacting. I never raised my hand to her, but into reacting and screaming and hollering back at her, which is not my nature at all. Um, and then it got to the point where I even thought about unaliving myself, but I didn't tell anyone. Um, she knew that, but my faith in God though is so strong that she wouldn't. She knows that I would never ever even think about doing that. But she convinced our children that no longer lived at home, the friends that we had outside that weren't around close. We didn't have any friends close to us. Everybody was separate. She convinced everyone that I was suicidal, and it took me a few days to figure this out when it happened. So she made an excuse that we had to change the locks on our house. We lived on a farm. Our nearest neighbor was a half mile away. Well, I changed the locks, and then she made an excuse. Our granddaughter was gone that night, that lived at home, and she made an excuse that we had to go to town. Um, she was also heavily on the opioid drugs at this time. She'd been our whole marriage. So before we went to town, she went to the gun cabinet that we had, and there was a 9 millimeter pistol in that cabinet. And she reached for that gun 3 or 4 times and put her hand back down, and I could see the wheels in her head turning. And she finally ended up taking that gun and going out and throwing it in the high tunnel on our farm and hiding it. And it was really odd to me. It clicked that something really bad was going on.
Mm-hmm.
But in all the other crazy things that she had done, this didn't seem so out of character. But then the next day, I looked for the spare key to the lock on the house that I had just changed, and the spare key was missing. So I believe in my heart of hearts that I don't have video of it. I don't have any of that. But this is what happened. She had everyone that knew us thinking that I was suicidal. And she had planned for someone to use that spare key while we were gone to come into the house. And I would be another statistic right now.
I get what you're
It,
saying. Yeah,
she had it
that's
set up perfectly, but um, by the hand of God, I don't know why she, at the last second, hid that gun. I,
that is crazy. That is just crazy to me.
yeah.
Um,
I
I
ended up, yeah, I got out of it I ended up writing, I am not suicidal. If anything happens to me, she did it. And I put it on a piece of paper and hid it in my sock. But my mental state at that time, I could have grabbed my keys and I could have drove away. But I just, when you're in that state, you feel so helpless with all the mental torture. And um, I ended up pretending like I sent letters out that said if anything happens to me, I didn't commit suicide. And I made her believe that I sent them out.
mm-hmm.
After that, the tactic turned to trying to convince everyone that I was crazy.
Mm. So she was gaslighting as well then.
Very, yes, very bad. Actually convinced a psychiatrist from the Mayo Clinic that I had a rare mental disorder called delusional disorder, which is where you believe that your partner's cheating. And it is an actual very rare mental disorder, but she had researched it and she knew what to say. It was during COVID. I got two on the phone with Zoom calls with the psychiatrist, and he asked me questions, and he wasn't listening. I got mad because I didn't understand what was happening. So the psychiatrist is supposed to check with another family member to confirm the things that the wife was saying at the time. So he chose to call my sister. Well, my sister didn't know what was going on behind closed doors.
Mm-hmm.
She was 3 states away. She didn't know what to say. And that psychiatrist ended up diagnosing me with that rare disorder and prescribing medication to me.
Oh my goodness.
I fought for 3 months to get that off my medical records, but he did say that he may have made a mistake. That's as far as he went in my medical records. The manipulation is just mind blowing.
The malfeasance and the great um, misdiagnose and all of that is such bad practice.
Yes.
I can't imagine. I went through that not too long ago, but for a medical issue that I thought I had, but it turned out I didn't. But they throw out these definitions for you, or these psychosis descriptives for you that you may fall under, which you probably aren't, and you're just
Right.
being under, quote unquote, under their spell of
Hmm.
believing them. And I'm just curious, like how did you manage to stay for 20, you said 21 years or 23 years?
21, when she was a covert narcissist, I truly believed that she was the perfect Christian wife. It was only after the fact, even after I left home, that I figured out that she had been cheating the whole time from day one. Um,
Oh, okay. Okay.
so it was that part. The 21 years was the easy part, even though I was didn't know I was being manipulated and everything the whole time. But after I started figuring it out, when you think the love of your life is cheating on you and gaslighting you, that hits you. That's a long time to believe in someone and to now realize that you had been duped and you've been lied to the whole time.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know where I found the strength. I was isolated, man, alone, but I got through it.
Well, I'm really glad that you were able to recognize, or to start to recognize, what the red flags were
Yes,
before, because she could have, like, she changed her mind, like what you said with the gun and the house key. She changed her mind to not commit it, but yet time could have passed where she would have changed her mind again.
yeah,
And and I'm glad that you
the
were out of that safely. I mean,
yeah,
physically anyway.
yeah. So after I started from the time that passed from when I started noticing the red flags to when I got out was about a year.
Mm.
She had
Okay.
me financially bound. I mean, I could have jumped in my pickup or car and left. I could have done that. Um, Another thing that a lot of people in these relationships do, and I felt shame for it for the longest time, was leave and come back. I did that twice
Mm.
because you still believe you're still trauma bonded to them, and you still believe you can fix them or you can fix the situation. And until you come to the realization that you're just beating a dead horse, that they can, and it happens, you can end up dead in these situations. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to use my story to get other men out. And you did mention that you think it does in society. It seems like there's an overwhelming amount of male narcissists to female, but I think in some of that, what I'm finding with Helping Hand is that a lot of men are going through this and they don't speak out about it. because they're conditioned not to talk about it. And I'm really using my story to try to break that stigma.
Yeah, I can understand that. I do find that a lot of my, especially on this panel that I've interviewed, I've had, I think, about an equal amount of women and men come onto the
Mm,
panel. But out of all of them, it seems like it was always tilted more towards women being the victims of
mhm,
someone being a narcissist or gaslighting them.
mhm.
But if you could like go back to that year where you started to kind of like the spark started, your wheels started turning.
Hmm.
Um, what did freedom actually feel like? What did you have? Did you have fear? Did you have guilt, regret, anything like that? Did you have those kind of feelings when you were trying to leave?
So I did. I had filed for disability, and because of my spine and everything, I got it. I didn't have to go see their doctors. So for the last year I was there, I knew I had done enough research. I had known that I had to close her off and get out of there, and for my own safety, never speak to her again. So it took me a year. I was stuck there financially. My disability finally came through. I secretly got a hold of my lawyer and got all the paperwork ready. Endured a year of mental torture, keeping my head down, not trying to cause any fights. And I used my head and I planned my escape for my own safety. The other two times that I left, had the police called on me for abuse and for, I don't remember. Oh, the other one, she claimed that I was going to hurt myself. And um, so I just used my head and did it the smart way.
Mm-hmm.
But I just want to tell everyone out there, the more knowledge you have about them, the safer you are and the safer you can be with getting out of those situations.
Um, Sorry about that. So one of the last things that I did want to talk about um, was sorry, I just have to shut this down. Um, was what boundaries or habits did you learn after you were um, in this relationship uh, that you now have to deal with in the aftermath of it all?
Yeah, so I guess we haven't, what should probably talk about the healing phase is very important. After I got out, filed for the divorce, I'm still fighting for that 3 years later. But on the healing journey, for the key for me, it took me 2 years after I got out. And I considered myself healed now because she doesn't rent space in my head anymore
Mm-hmm.
at all. I don't think we're ever done on a healing journey, but I know that I know my worth. And setting boundaries is a big part of learning what you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Getting out and learning in new relationships, even with friends, family, anyone in life, you have to have boundaries and you have to have enough confidence in yourself to keep those boundaries. And if anyone crosses those, you have the right to speak up. You have the right to cut them out of your life.
Yeah, I just had a conversation with someone. I don't want to share their name or too much of their story, but I believe they're in a narcissist relationship. And, I just advise them, you cannot be accountable for the consequences that they endure or the
Yes.
actions that they take or the words that they use. You are only accountable for yourself.
Right.
And I believe that a lot of that needs to be kind of talked to. And in case we do run out of time here, I'll get you back on another call. But I just want to thank you so very much for being on the panel today, and I would love to kind of delve in your situation a little bit more. Perhaps to have you back again to kind of talk a little bit more about it, because I know that there's a lot of other points in your life where were awakening calls, little light bulbs going off and fire
Yes.
alarms and everything telling you run away from this relationship.
Yes.
So I would really like to have you back to discuss some more parts about that and more parts about your story, because mainly the details of it, because I think that sometimes people kind of grandalize, or if that's even a word, but put
Yeah.
generalize, I guess is the word,
Yes.
and I think a lot of times we miss the in between sections of someone's life, the phases that they go through. And so I'd like to discuss those things with you. And I know that
Yes.
you're part of a group on social media that is called Healing Hands.
Helping hand.
Helping Hands, okay. And I'd like to be open to having some of those members on our panel. So, what we'll do is we'll end this session for today. I really do appreciate your time and your vulnerability as well to share the story that you've shared with us so far. And I would, like I said, I would really like to delve into this a bit deeper with you again, and then also talk more about the Helping Hands organization that you're a part of. Um, but for now, I think we'll cut it. And like I said, thank you so much for sharing what you've shared so far. And I hope that our listeners have learned at least one or two key factors from your story. So I really appreciate your time. And I know that time is valuable. And so until next time, we will see you again. We will schedule you another time. And like I said, talk more in detail about your situation and how you got out of it and how your healing process has begun, and what advice you will have for others as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Dre. I really appreciate the shout outs to our group and for having me on. Sharing my story is very important to help others. So thank you.
No problem. Thank you for coming on to our podcast. You have a great day.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye. Well, we'd like to thank Keith again for his vulnerability and his time. And if you have an issue with dealing with a narcissist situation where you're involved with a friendship or even a romantic relationship and would like to talk about it, you can reach out to us. If you're in immediate danger, please use our disclaimer to contact 988 Lifeline Crisis Center, where they can assist you right away. And if you're in even more danger, please know that you can always call 911 in your area for some help. And if you'd like to be on the panel here at Brace Yourself, you can email us at braceyourmentalhealth@gmail.com. You can leave us a comment on one of our videos. You can reach us through TikTok or Instagram direct message. And we hope that you can have a great and healthy day today, and make sure that you're kind to yourself and to others. And with that, this is Dre. This is Brace Yourself.Podcast. And that's a wrap.